You're listening to the Vibrant Vision Podcast, a podcast designed to help you get clarity, increase your confidence, and cultivate the most important connections so you can have the impact you were created to make. I'm your host, Amanda Kerrigan. Now let's get to making that vibrant vision a reality. Hi there, welcome to episode 14 of the Vibrant Vision Podcast, and we've been talking a lot about confidence killers. And a lot of times these confidence killers show up as lies that we tell ourselves. So we've talked about the lie that we tell ourselves that I'm too busy. I'm probably going to fail. I'm just not a courageous person. And today we're talking about another confidence killer that shows up as another lie that we tell ourselves, and that is, I'm not worth it. And I saw this very clearly in my own family a couple of weeks ago when my grandparents finally made the decision to get a stair lift so that they could continue to live in their split level home and be safe and comfortable. And Grandma was totally on board because this was mostly for Grandma. And she's just super excited about getting it. And she knew why she wanted it. She knew it would help alleviate her hip and her back pain. She knew that if she didn't fall, she knew that if she didn't get this stair lift, that there was a significant risk that she could fall down the stairs and hurt herself. And then they told her how much it was going to cost. And she was like, nope, we don't need that. I don't need that. It's too expensive. And what that too expensive translated to was, I'm not worth it. And to make a very long story short, they did end up making that decision, and that stair lift is actually going to be installed this week. But a lot of times we do this to ourselves. And maybe you've had an experience like this. I certainly have. I have made significant investments in my health, and it's been hard. Remaining gluten and dairy free, for example. Somebody asked me the other day, do you do this like because you have to or because you really, really want to? And I'm like, well, I'm not. I'm not gluten free because I want to be. It's because my health is worth the extra expense and extra effort of doing gluten free food and dairy free food. I go to a nurse practitioner who is not on my insurance, but she has some natural medicines that she helps me with, and those are quite expensive visits. And it's because I believe that my health, and by extension of my health, me, I'm worth it. And the same goes for a therapeutic or a coaching relationship. I have a coach, and I make a significant financial investment in that coaching every month because I believe that what I'm getting out of that coaching relationship is worth it. And because I get something out of that coaching relationship, and by extension, my family, my friends, my coworkers, whoever I'm interacting with, it makes me a better person. So it's not only an investment in me, it's an investment in my relationships, both current and future. Nose is itching, sorry. And the same goes for things like investing in my home or investing in my thrift savings plan, which is the government's version of the 401k. It's an investment because I believe it will pay dividends in the future. And so today, I want to talk to you about 3 essential truths that we need to embrace so that we can overcome this confidence killer, so that we can get beyond the, I'm just going to call it out, the excuse of I'm not worth it. The first one is you are bought at a price. You are not your own. And by virtue of the fact that you are not your own, and by virtue of the fact that you are a human being, you are priceless. I believe that regardless of what your beliefs are, Jesus laid down his life so that you would have an opportunity to be in heaven. And because he did that for you, you are priceless. And because you are priceless, you are worth everything. And that's a hard truth for us to wrap our heads around, especially if we've been raised in the church. Because the other truth that we have to wrap our heads around is that we have to think of others as higher than ourselves. But it doesn't mean that we lower our standards of ourselves and what we are worth. It means that we raise the standard of who others are. So the first truth is that you were bought at a price. You are priceless. The second truth is that when it comes to expenses, we rarely say we're not worth it. Like, I'm not going to say this month, I'm not worth paying my power bill. An expense. I'm not worth paying my mortgage, my HOA. We won't comment on the HOA and whether it's worth it or not, but we often say, I'm not worth it, or some other version of it. Most often, I can't afford it. It's too expensive. And what we're really saying is that's not a financial priority. That's not a priority, period. So what's the difference between an investment and an expense? Part of my education when I was at the University of Arizona was going through these horrible business classes. I hated them. And I was really bad at accounting. But I did learn that expenses are financial outlays to meet an obligation, a liability. So for example, my power bill, I have a liability. But an investment is spending that will create or build up an asset. For example, my coaching, my healthcare. So in my business, my coach training was an investment because it reaps dividends, not just in the form of my income, but in the form of my clients and what they get out of the fact that I continually invest in myself as a coach. In contrast, in my business, I pay for a spam filter for my website. It costs me $10 a month to make sure that no spammers are going to sit there and leave comments and try and attack my website. It's kind of annoying. It's an expense, a necessary expense. Otherwise, I wouldn't pay for it. But an expense in that it's not yielding dividends. And the same can be said for other areas of our lives. It's not just our businesses. It's not just a coach that you're making an investment in. And we can consider things an expense or an investment depending on how we look at it. For example, in my health, I can consider my nurse practitioner an expense. I have to pay her, I have to go see her, yada, yada. Or I can consider it an investment in my health because she has given me some tremendous advice that has allowed me to feel a lot better. Do I still have autoimmune flare-ups? Yes. Do I still have migraines? Occasionally. Am I getting them that as often? No. And so by investing in my health, I'm also investing in my clients because I feel better. I'm able to be a better coach. I'm investing in my family and spend more time with them. And because I get to serve more, because I feel better, it's an investment, not an expense. Because this reminds me that, yes, I'm worth the investment. Because then I get to consider other people higher than myself because I'm becoming a better version of me. And the third truth is that if we would say someone else is worth it, then we are not true to ourselves if we say, yeah, but I'm not worth it. So, for example, if I needed something for my blindness, let's say I needed a new Braille device, and it costs $7,500, which is exactly what my grandma's stair lift costs. My grandma would write a check. I wouldn't ask her to do that, but my grandma would write a check. If I really needed something, my grandparents are incredibly generous people. But my grandma needs something for her health, and all of a sudden it's, oh no, that's too expensive. I've done this exact same thing. I can say without a doubt that I've done the exact same thing. I hesitate to invest in myself sometimes. It's just being real. I mean, that's why I'm on this coaching journey with you. That's why I'm a confidence coach, is because I have been stopped in my tracks by these confidence killers, and that's why I can talk about them. And it's the same with my clients. They hesitate to invest in themselves, not just money, but time, effort, But they wouldn't hesitate, and they often don't hesitate to invest in their spouse or their children. The time and the effort it takes to build a business is seen as an expense, a liability that they can't afford. And their kids' dreams take priority over their dreams. And often they do their children a disfavor because they don't model investing in themselves. My mom did not do this. My mom was amazing. So when I was 6 or 7, my mom started going to paint class every Wednesday night. And she would paint these wooden figures, and we had wooden things all over our house that my mom had created. That was mom's night. She got to go and she got to do this. And it reminds me when I sit down at my keyboard to play, I'm like, oh, I don't have time for this. I battle the lie. But I remember my mom going to paint class, investing time in her hobby. Did she invest in her children? Yes, without a doubt. I would not be the person I am today if my mother had not invested in me. But she also modeled investing in herself well. And you can do the same thing for your kids or your spouse or your niece or nephew or whoever is important to you, your friends, whoever is important to you. Be a model of investing in yourself because you are just as worth it. So I want to remind you today that you are worth it. As you embrace these truths that we've talked about, that you are priceless, that you can say yes to an investment just like you say yes to your expenses every month. You can invest time and effort and yes, even money in something that is important to you because there are ways around it. My clients have found many creative ways to pay for coaching. I have found many creative ways to pay for coaching and for my health care because I know it's worth it. We sacrifice for what's worth it. And you can sacrifice for you because you are worth it. You matter just as much as anybody else. So today, if you are someone who is ready to invest in yourself, then I want to invite you to invest in others. If this podcast has helped you, invest 30 seconds to share it with someone who also needs to hear this message. It helps me, but more important, it helps them. Because not only are you worth it, they're worth it. So thank you so much for joining me today for this podcast. If you've enjoyed this podcast, would you just leave me a review in iTunes or Google Play or wherever you get your podcasts? It helps me out and it helps other people out too. So next week, we'll be back with another episode on confidence killers. Until then, I want to invite you and encourage you to live your vibrant vision.